Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Gumby's Summer Fun Special and Gumby's Winter Fun Special from 1987 and 1988. These were some really fun comics. Well, this one especially. There's a dip in quality for the second one, and we'll see why in a second. But these were put out by Comico. Comico was a independent comic publisher in the 80s that did a lot of interesting stuff when they kind of got a little more money. And they had like great editors, Bob Schreck, Diana Schutz, who went on to do a lot of great stuff at other companies over the years. Let's start with the first one. I should open this up so you can see the wraparound cover. This is Arthur Adams, who does all the art in these. And this is just some prime time Arthur Adams work. Some good stuff. This is weird because at the time he was pretty much just drawing X-Men type comics, superhero stuff. But who knew that he would want to do a Gumby comic? I'm pretty sure that he really liked Gumby because I doubt Comico had the money to outspend Marvel to get him to, you know, do these comics. So let's crack it open. They have a little thing about the creator of Gumby, Art Clokey, and the writer and artist, Bob Burden and Arthur Adams. So this is why this comic is so good. I mean, it's wonderful Arthur Adams art, but it's Bob Burden of Flaming Carrot fame writing it. And it is just such fun, imaginative, kiddie comic writing. I mean, I would have read this every month till now if Bob Burden kept writing Gumby. In the 2010s, he did a Gumby series with Rick Geary, and he went back to Gumby. I have a few of those. They're pretty good, but this is just such a, it's almost like in that tradition of like Herbie and like Little Lulu, just great, fun, imaginative comics that stand up as some of the best kid comics ever. Great title page here. So chapter 1, we see it's a sunny day in America, and Gumby and Pokey, his horse companion, are having a fun day, and they're playing kick the can. And so he's so good at drawing this, like, you know, obviously simple cartoon character Gumby. But then, you know, when Arthur Adams is drawing like adults, just, you know, so good. Realistic style of cartooning. And so one of the kids, Pokey, the horse here, he kicks the can and somebody put a rock in it. And it goes all the way into this guy's window and breaks his window. But nobody comes out and yells at him. So they're good kids, you know. Gumby and Pokey are good. So they figure they'll knock on the door and apologize or offer to fix the window. It's this guy, Mr. Wooster's house, Wooster. And they walk inside because there's no answer. And Wooster has tied all these wires up to his lightning rod on the roof. He's basically trying to commit suicide because he's just so sick of the modern world, the bombs, the chemicals, the disease, the noise. I just can't go on anymore. So this is so odd. I mean, this is a kid's comic, but they've got stuff like this in it. So Pokey is all like, I think he's become a mope, Gumby. And Gumby, being such a sweet, nice kid, he says, we better take him home with us. Maybe we could cheer him up. So they take him to their tree fort. And nothing they do can cheer him up. So then Gumby's mom calls from the house and says, Gumby, you have to come in now. It's time for your babysitting gig. And when he gets inside, I guess he's going to be babysitting his robot playmates, Mem, Blib, and Niblet. These are obviously designed by Bob Burden. Excuse me. I mean, only Bob Burden could design this Niblet character. And I gotta say, when I was rereading this yesterday, every time Niblet appears, I just couldn't help laugh. He's so freaking funny and cute. And we see they're really happy to see Gumby. They're good old friends. And we meet the robot parents of the 3 kids. And they're going to, Gumby's parents, who we see here, are going to accompany them to Stockholm. And Mr. Robot's going to receive an award from the Grand Hall of Science. The kids are really excited to get to hang out with Gumby and Pokey. And then the mother, Gumby's mother says, "Where's Niblet?" And Niblet is lifting the sofa up. Because Niblet's basically a baby robot. And Gumby says, "He's rearranged the furniture." And Gumby's mom says, "Amazing, it's just the way I was thinking of doing it last week." And Niblet's mom is very proud. She says, "He's the smartest kid in class. But he's never read minds before," says the father. So Niblet's got all these powers. So as they leave, Gumby's parents say that the agency will send a babysitter over by dinner time. So you're just in charge till then. And if there's any problem, go over to Wooster's house and get him. And Gumby says, "Oh, Wooster's in the backyard playing with us." So in the backyard, we see the kids having a great time playing cowboys and Indians. And this is just odd little touches, Bob Burden says. "Being a girl, Blib has to play an Indian." And she says, "I like being an Indian." And I guess the Blib and Pokey, who are playing the Indians, have got Wooster. And they're pretending to burn him at the stake. They tied him up to this little pole. Niblet's just sitting in the corner by himself. Gumby looks over and says, "It looks like he's talking to someone. Maybe he has a secret friend. Maybe it's a bug," says Pokey. So it starts raining, so they go inside to the basement to play with the train set. And then it gets dark outside. And Gumby says the babysitter should have been here by now. And they notice it's a full moon and that there's blinking lights in the tree, and they're starting to get scared. And they say, "What do you think, Wooster?" And he just says, "I don't care." Throughout this whole comic, he's just like, every time anything happens, he's just like, "I don't care." Like he's really catatonically suicidal. I like this little baby picture of Gumby, as if he couldn't be more cute. So they hear beeping sounds from upstairs, and it's Niblet. He's making bleeping sounds. And meanwhile, outside in the tree where the lights are coming from, we see this flying saucer. And these 2 crazy guys are in here. Like, this is so weird. I mean, I guess this wouldn't fly in any kid's comic, because these guys are repulsive. Their eyes are coming out from their eye sockets, just hanging by their eye stalks. It's almost like they've been Tex Avery'd permanently. So they're freaking out, these guys. They're like, "Someone's tapped into our onboard electro info box and figured out the binary codes. And they're in that house." So Niblet is bleeping to them and like kind of taking over their spaceship. So they say, "Wait, an earthling life form is approaching." And it's the babysitter. And she's like, "Oh, I'm late. I hope the kids aren't, too put off. I'm not feeling well." So then the doorbell rings, and they're all scared. They're like, "Oh, is it those guys from the tree? What's going on?" And they open the door, or they're about to open the door, and Gumby's like, "Oh, it's the babysitter." But unknown to the agency, babysitting agency, or even to the babysitter herself, she's a werewolf. So they just throw in these random plot things, like every good kids comic should. So the babysitter's a werewolf, and she's threatening Gumby. That's a really well-drawn werewolf. And then right then the saucer men zip in. They've got a very small flying saucer. And they hit the werewolf. And then the saucer men grab Niblet. But Niblet doesn't want to go. And then the babysitter bites one of them in the ass, so they zap her with a zap gun. And Pokey tries to defend Niblet, but he's smacked on his butt. When the smoke clears, the saucermen are gone. They crash through the wall. Here's the shape of the UFO. And they have taken Niblet. So Gumby vows to get him back. He's a brave kid. So they're all suited up. They're ready for action. And then the werewolf wakes up and once again is about to attack him. But then he gets zapped again. But this time he gets zapped by these spacemen. But it turns out they're not spacemen. They're space bears. And they're like, fear not, we won't hurt you. They're nice space bears. We're from the Space Police Patrol. And we're after those bad apples who made the hole in your wall. And Pokey's thinking, look at the size of their heads. They have really tiny heads. So one of the space bears explains that those are the Hysterians, those other aliens. That's the name of their race. Hideous creatures who would have conquered the galaxy by now if not for their one tragic flaw, their hysterical nature. And they team up forces and they're going to go get Niblet. And Gumby says, hey, Wooster, keep an eye on things while we're gone. And Wooster says, I don't care. So they get in the Space Bear ship. And now we're back on the Hysterian ship. We see them. And of course they're arguing. These guys are just hysterical, crazy aliens. And then they crash land in Holland because they weren't paying attention to their navigation. And then inside the Space Bear ship, Gumby notices this. It looks like a mobile. He's like, what are those things, Mr. Space Bear? These are whistles, strange whistles from many planets. We bears like whistles. It's just like all these random little things, and it's perfect for a kid's comic. So the Space Bears they realize that the Hysterians crash landed in Holland, but they have to gas up, so they stop at a gas station. But they go into this the grocery part of the gas station, or a grocery store, and he says, "Oh, we don't need gasoline for our spaceship." And the bear says, now, Gumby, what would bears design their ships to run on? Honey! So they get all this honey to gas up the ship. And then they take off into the sky again. Now, back in Holland, the Hysterians have already left. But a little Dutch boy says, they went that away. And then they get a secret encoded message from Niblet. The ship crashed again in the South China Seas. So they find the Hysterian ship finally, Gumby and friends. But these pirates have found the Hysterians first. And they're digging up the crashed flying saucer, thinking it's a treasure chest. And the Hysterians are freaking out. He's like, who the hell are these guys? They can't open the spaceship. So they decide to just like party down with some grog and sing some hearty songs until tomorrow. Meanwhile, Gumby and Pokey have infiltrated them. They dressed up like pirates and they've joined the party. Pokey is drinking the grog and getting really drunk. And Gumby's kind of pissed at him. He's like, dude, we're on a job here. We're on a mission. But Pokey's having a gay old time, telling stories and singing along with them. So Gumby goes to inspect the saucer, sneaks away, and he taps on it in Morse code. And Niblet bleeps back. So Gumby's happy that he's still in there. So then there's other unexpected players in the scenario. A Hysterian relief contingent shows up on a bigger spaceship. And then the Hysterians attack. And the pirates are scattered because they have advanced weaponry, these aliens. They have these zap guns. The pirates are just like, we can't fight these guys. All we have is cutlass and lead. But Gumby rouses them. He says, "Avast, mateys. I found some weirdies for our own side, and we'll turn the tide and save the day." So he introduces them to the Space Bears. And so the Space Bears and the pirates team up, and they fight the Hysterians. A stray ray blast makes a big hole in the little flying saucer, and Niblet comes out, brandishing a cutlass. Rack, knees, splat. I fucking love Niblet. I want a whole Niblet comic. So they fight back the Hysterians. Some of them don't do so good. This pirate just has a giant hole in his chest. And he's like, "Oh, great, just great. Will you look at this?" So they take a break for lunchtime. And then Gumby has a plan. He sneaks into the Hysterians' camp because they retreated to their camp. And he found some Cuban coffee syrup and put it into the Hysterians' drinking rations. So they're basically puts them in a state of shock. They're already so hyper that drinking this coffee has just turned them into like rigid as cordwood. So they just stack them up, and the Space Bears take them away to meet their Space Bear justice. And they say, "Hey, you can keep that treasure chest for yourself." And the pirates are so happy. They say, "It's the most dandy treasure chest in all creation." So the Space Bears say, "Sorry, we can't give you a lift home, Gumby. We don't got enough room in the ship." So Gumby's kind of brooding. He's kind of like, "Oh man, I let everyone down. We're not going to be home in time before our parents get home." So I guess the pirate captain died in the battle, and they're all trying to find a new leader. And there's some really funny Bob Burden one-liners in here as these dumb pirates try to pick out a leader. And Niblet says his very first word, and he votes for Gumby to be the pirate captain. And everyone says he's a good first mate and a good fighter, and he's green. And there's a little asterisk. "Green is good luck for pirates, ye editor." Which is not... Just Bob Burden throws shit like that in all the time. I really like Bob Burden stuff. If you haven't read Flaming Carrot, you got to. There's nothing quite like it in comics. So they have a big parade at midnight for Gumby, or just a moonlight parade. And they crown him the new king of pirates. So they set sail for America. And they get lost because no one's a navigator. I guess the captain did all the navigating and he's dead. But he says, they tell them that he always looked in this crystal ball. And that's how he would navigate. So they're like, "Yeah, let us see it." And they look at the crystal ball. "Why, that's a bowl of chili. That is chili, all right." So he shakes it and says, "Come on, crystal ball." And they say, "Hey, that looks like America in the crystal ball." But he says, "Wait, it's a TV program, a rerun of Starsky and Hutch." So then they get to land, but it's not America. And they see this village. And they see a little skeleton boy. He's a living skeleton. And we see this little skeleton boy tending to his pumpkin patch. And Gumby and Pokey approach him, and he says, "Oh, you scared me. I thought you were pumpkin eaters. It's just about that season." So the skeleton boy says, "You're in Halloween Town. It's Halloween here all the time." Just really nice Arthur Adams art. So they have a big feast for Gumby and Pokey. And then all of a sudden someone says, "Alarm! Pumpkin eaters on the horizon." These pumpkin eaters are just like these, I don't know, like mongoloid giant mouthed. I don't know who they are. They just live in the forest waiting for the pumpkins. So one of the Halloween Town residents, this witch, is like, "All of our concentrated spookiness won't scare them. Such is their lust for pumpkin fruit." And Gumby says, "Well, let's see what a ruthless crew of red-blooded pirates can do." So the pumpkin eaters are scared of the pirates and run off. They're not scared of the witches and the skeletons and mummies. So the Halloween Town residents are very grateful, and they show Gumby how to use the crystal ball to actually get home. And the pirates decide to stay in Halloween Town. They like it. So they make it home in time before their parents get home. And they're like, "Hey, Wooster, what have you done? You fixed up the hole in the wall and everything." And Wooster is a totally changed man. He says, "My spirits really picked up after I got married. Everything's beautiful. Meet my new wife, Mrs. Wooster." So she was just a Avon lady who came by that night. They hit it off so well that they're already married in, like, I don't know, 4 hours? But it's good news because Wooster doesn't want to kill himself anymore. And then also is good news is the babysitter. The ray beams of the aliens percolated her nervous system, and she'll never turn into a werewolf again. She's been cured of her werewolfism. And then Niblet says, "Our parents are home." And everyone's very happy. And when Gumby tells them what they did that evening, of course, he just thinks his son's making up imaginary stories. It's like, "Oh, well, that's great, son, just great." So the robot family leaves, and Gumby and Pokey are glad to be home. "Bye, kids, bye." I wish this comic was around when I was a kid. I was already a teenager when this came out in 1987. Here's a nice little pinup by Arthur Adams. And it's Gumby and Pokey writing, it looks like Gertie the Dinosaur, Winsor McKay's animated creation. So that's the first issue. This stuff is gold. This is one of I love shit like that. The second one isn't as good, unfortunately. It's written by Steve Purcell of Sam and Max fame. And still has wonderful Arthur Adams art, though it's not as good. I noticed a dip in quality. This looks great, though. Just all these random characters. It's annoying because the colorist in this issue, Rick Taylor, he did the first one as well. He does a lot of flat coloring in this, like too much. I don't know if he ran out of time, but if you know what I mean, in comics, there'll be all these background characters and they'll just color them all one color. And sometimes it's dark, so all the pencil work that Arthur Adams does and ink work, sometimes it's covered up by it. And it's kind of annoying. It's like, dude, Arthur Adams drew all these little things, crazy things, and you can barely see them because you're coloring. Nice little intro page by Arthur Adams. A really nice title page. It's a nice logo. So this is the Winter Fun special from a year later. So Gumby and Pokey have just come back from the dump and they found all these like treasures, all this like stuff that they're going to turn into other stuff. Like that old hamster cage will make a swell catcher's mask. And Gumby says, "Let's stop by the toy mine on the way home. I saw some kids panning for marbles and whistle rings in the stream down the hill." So I like that there's this mine where that's where they get toys. And there's different veins of toys, like hey, we found a vein of rubber dinosaurs. And we're busy taking care of that one. The toy mine is all the workers there, or all these like toy miners. So they're toys. They're like puppets. And Gumby says, "Hey, Mr. O'Day, what's new and exciting?" So he tells him about the dinosaur vein. And he says, "We're blasting even deeper, where we hope to find great quantities of plush animals and Pee Wee Herman dolls." So they head off, and they're heading off to home, but all of a sudden there's an explosion at the toy mine. Like they used too much dynamite. So 10 of the toy miners are stuck in a shaft. And he says, "Run, call the police, call the authorities, we need help." So Gumby does that. The fire trucks rush to the scene. And then Pokey goes to the shed. And he breaks through the door. And Pokey's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not really used to driving this thing." He's in some kind of like crazy drill machine that he worked a summer job to be able to buy. He bought it from an ad in an old comic book. So they rush to the mine to help out. Yeah, the humor in this is just more kind of like typical humor, like comic book humor. It doesn't have that Dada, Bizarro, Bob Burden sense to it. Some of the jokes are even downright corny. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of clever, some of the stuff. And it does have some imagination. But just, it's such a quantum leap downward from the first issue. The writing. But Steve Purcell's, funnier than most comic book humorists, which kind of damning with faint praise. There's not many comic writers who are that funny, to be honest, in mainstream comics. So the fireman gives them permission to do their business. So they drill down into the earth. So they're speeding by all these veins of toys. We see an alien doll here from the movie Aliens. I think that was a pretty hot doll at the time. So they get to the mine. We see some Bob's Big Boy toys here and a Michelin Man. And the toy miners are already gone from the shaft where they were supposed to be. And they see a little hole. And it's like, do you think they dug themselves out? And Gumby says, maybe it was the mole people. Maybe the mole people, dug up and grabbed them. So they drill down further. And when they come out into this cavern, it's the mole people. And the mole people basically are just like these hard-working construction worker dudes. And they talk in like an old-timey Brooklyn accent. "This is where we live in Warwick." So it's kind of weird how, I guess, the planet Earth is made up of various mineral layers surrounding a molten central core, as he says. The innermost layers, those which is to say we inhabit, are in constant danger of overheating. Our job as mole people is to keep these inner layers in perpetual circulation. So it sounds like a hellish life. There's just unending toil. But because of that, they basically, the Earth wouldn't survive without their work. The Earth would get too hot and blow up. So he says, "We need your help. You and your X5 crust crawler." That's the machine that Pokey bought. He says, one of our friends was captured by the Prince of Darkness and his hateful imps and taken to the center of the Earth, even deeper in the center of the Earth. And they say, "We need your help. We mole folks are low-key. Adventure gives us the willies. That's why we brought your toy miners down here. We thought they'd help us, but all they do is eat and argue. So they're just like gluttons eating all this food and yelling at each other. So they're no help at all. So Gumby agrees. And it says, yeah, we'll help you. We'll rescue this guy. I think his name's Ray Crab. And it turns out there's a stowaway. This little mole girl stowed away on the ship. But she's got a lot of gumption. She's like, yeah, I want to go to this core and battle the Prince of Darkness. She totally knows why Gumby's going down there, and she's into it. She's a brave little girl. Mole girl. So they make it to hell, or heck, they call it. And of course, it's a kid's comic, so heck, it's just all these really annoying things. And this is where you realize, like, this is no Bob Burden. This is like kind of the kind of shit that would be in Crazy Magazine or something. Or, you know. Oh, they show commercials all the time. You have to watch commercials. And it's the Karen Valentine TV Movie of the Week Film Festival. And after that, we're going to do a 20-year hee-haw retrospective, and everyone's forced to watch the denizens of hell. Everyone ready for another great decades-long marathon of hit songs of the 70s? I would love that. That would be my heaven. They're serving disgusting foods like dishwater taffy and moth lips. It's not like this, though. Kiss Phyllis Diller. It's a kissing booth. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff in here, this flat color. It's just like Arthur Adams went to all this work of delineating each person in hell distinctively, and you can barely see them a lot of the times. They're just colored over. And so they find the Ray Crab guy, and it turns out the mole girl says, oh, I think you people on the surface call him Santa Claus. So it's Santa Claus. But he looks very different. And he's like, I let folks believe that I'm that fat, jolly guy. It makes them feel good. So by some bureaucratic glitch, Santa Claus ends up in hell. So they see this demon, and Gumby and Pokey are like, hey, take us to Beelzebub, Mr. Bub. We want to make him an offer. And they leave the mole girl behind to, like, free Santa Claus. So they're brought to the throne room of the big enchilada of hell, this guy. I guess that's Mr. Bub. It's a very classic Arthur Adams, great drawing. And they basically say, we want to join up. We like this operation, even though they're not feeling too good. They're starting to melt, because remember, they're made of clay. Meanwhile, Santa Claus has freed himself, and the other demons notice, and they run after him. And when Mr. Bub runs to capture Santa Claus, little mole girl trips her. And they're melty even more. And Pokey's kind of mad. He thinks that Santa Claus just abandoned them. But no, all of a sudden their drill car pops out of the ground, and it's Santa Claus. And he says, come on, kids, jump in, let's blow. And at this point, Gumby and Pokey are just liquid, and the mole girl's carrying them in pails. So they get in the ship, and they escape with the demons hot on their heels, but they succeed in escaping. So Santa Claus says, okay, I'll get you kids home. And they kind of crash through the surface. The drill ship kind of gives up the ghost. They pushed it too hard. But they're like, where are we? We're not in America. There's like kind of Japanese architecture. And all of a sudden this giant foot smashes the remnants of their drill ship. And they're in this like crazy Monster Island place where all the the kaiju live, and they're just throwing subway trains around like toys and just destroying everything. And the monsters see our heroes and they're going to stomp them. But once again, Santa Claus saves the day. He somehow found this hiding behind a cliff or something. It's a giant robot, Gumby. So all he does is do some kung fu moves, and that scares the monsters away. They're like, we're getting out of here. So our heroes jump in the ship and fly off. And Gumby and Pokey arrive at home, and there's kind of like a block party happening. And Santa Claus can't join them. Santa Claus has got to get back to work. So they bid him adieu. And the father says, "Would you like to explain that hole in the shed?" And Gumby says, "We will." And Gumby's father says, "It's a party. It's a party. We're having a party for the rescued toy miners. And we've invited the friendly mole people and other netherworldly inhabitants." Of course, the toy miners are just eating everything and arguing and causing a ruckus. And there's the little Natasha, the mole girl, again. And the mother says, "They were listening when we invited the mole people, so I'm afraid we had to ask them to come too. We didn't want to be rude. But they had a promise to be very, very good. So even the demons from heck are there, and they're enjoying themselves, eating hamburgers and corn on the cob." And then that's it. Gumby and Pokey look out at the camera, and they say, "See you next time." Here we have a beautiful pinup by Arthur Adams. Arthur Adams loves to draw dinosaurs. That's his thing, so you can tell. Just a really good pinup. And then we have this weird back cover where it's those like stand-up things you're supposed to cut out. And it's something that was not in the comic at all. Maybe this was a lost chapter where they found a Pellucidar. And there's all these cave people. And Gumby and Pokey. A Stegosaurus. Another dinosaur. So it's just like a teaser. Because, Arthur Adams is also known for drawing beautiful women. So it would have been pretty nice seeing him draw these cave chicks. So that's it. The two Gumby seasonal specials from 87, 88. I don't know if these have ever been reprinted. They're really good. I bet you could find them relatively cheap. I suggest you do. Especially the first one. The second one you could live without. This first one is just so perfectly written. It's one of the best kid comics ever made, I think. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find these for your own comic collection. Until next time, this is herculespetix bidding you adieu from the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.